Okay, so this is what happens, a screenshot of one of you, and this happens. And it sometimes it happens a lot. And GIS software in general has a tendency to be complicated software. It's huge programs with a lot of different well, tools in it, and sometimes things just don't work. I can say a few things about that. Recently, I think that QGIS, as an example of a GIS, it's been really stable. Stable as in, jokingly, I say for a couple of years already that if it crashes more than once per day on me, then I reinstall it. I'll just clean my system and I reinstall it. I've said that jokingly for some time, but I think these days it doesn't really crash on me anymore. So I think I have confidence in the software, but it doesn't mean that the software is perfect. It's standalone, it's perfect. But it also, of course, I don't know what else is installed on your computer. There's so many things that can go wrong in combinations of software packages. So if it kind of crashes all the time, yeah, I'm sorry, most of the time it must be something that it's interfering with something else on your computer. And I really, I'd love to tell you what could be wrong, but I really don't know. So that means that you have to take a closer look at things that go wrong. So if you have crash logs that said, okay, it stops now, and the search for the exact words that are used in the logs, most of the time you'll find something. And you can, and there's warnings coming up sometimes, and you can ignore most of the warnings, but sometimes you're supposed to read them. Sometimes you just have to take a look at one of the warnings and see what's going on. For example, in the past I had a lot of Python warnings. Sometimes tools don't work because of Python errors, but sometimes just, you know, they give a Python warning. And it kind of makes you feel insecure about, okay, am I doing something wrong? But the thing is that there is a lot of interdependability between software packages, and Python changes all the time. And all the packages that QGIS are based on, they change all the time. They develop, and every time something changes, it might trigger a warning. Now, in some software, these warnings are just not given. They just say ignore the warning because it will make the user insecure. In open source software, in general, the thinking behind it is that we have to tell them everything because they might want to know. So that means that some of the warnings you get are, yeah, they're warnings, but they're like, okay, there's a new package, there's something, and I used it and it might be the same, but I'm not sure about that. So what do you think? He's like, I don't know, man, just go on with it and ignore the warning. But sometimes they mean something, and especially if you got crashes, take a look at the warnings that you get in the meantime and see what's happening. It might be that you've got the wrong Python installed because some other package overruled the Python installer for QGIS or something. So one of the things that went wrong, the topo tijdreis script. For those of you who started early, in day 1 or day 2 of the assignment, yeah, well, this happened. The services that the topo tijdreis used were deprecated, and that meant that they were still pointing at some old services which were running over HTTP. And nowadays, it's of course common that everything runs over a secure connection, so it's all HTTPS. But well, this happened. Well, there you go. And then the question is, how can I solve this issue? So I started poking a bit, and we found that basically, if you look at the whole structure, the maps are made by the Dutch cadastre, and it's the responsibility of the Dutch cadastre. But the people who actually make the services, who run the services, are not at the cadastre, they're from Esri. So they run the services, or at least I think they do, because one of the guys from Esri answered when I was saying, okay, what's happening here? The good news is that everything was restored within a day or so, including the script that you could use. It was updated to make sure that everything worked again. So the good news is, if you make a good call about, okay, something's wrong here, I'm not sure what it is, but if I look at things, this is going wrong, this is going, so my guess is it would be more in this corner of the world. It gives you good answers and it comes up with a solution. The lesson here, as I say, dependency is everywhere. Everything is connected. We're in a kind of it's not a standalone software package or so. We're working in an ecosystem, and the ecosystem is changing all the time. So everything you do with data, it is connected. So sometimes it also happens that layers from the PDOK plugin are not working. Now there's a few options for that. One of them is that the way that the services plugin works is that it makes a local copy of an index, and the index points to different layers in different services. And in, I would say, regular intervals, but my experience, it's irregular intervals. The services are checked, and if something changes or drops, they change the service as well, or the index. But the index is locally on your machine, and it doesn't auto-update. So sometimes you have to update your PDOK services plugin as well. So if you have a look at the services plugin, normally you're looking at this tab, but there's also this tab, the extra tab, and it says check services. And if you click that one, then they might come up with a newer index. And that solves, I think, 80 or 90% of the issues with layers from PDOK that are not working. So if you encounter something like that, just check services. If you read somewhere that there's, for example, new aerial imagery available in PDOK, check services, because as soon as that news comes out, the maker of this plugin, Richard Duivenvoorde, he will change the index again and you can use it again. So refresh it. That saves you about 80, 90% of all the issues. If that doesn't fix the problem, you can copy the URL for a service and add it manually. One of the things, I'll put the background, the background was a bit offish, I heard. Let's put this one, let's put this one as a backdrop now. There's all kind of things you can use. For example, if you want to, let's zoom into a certain building here. It's always nice. Sorry. If I wanted to use the building layer, but I don't want, for some reason, this one doesn't function correct. You can see here, there's the URL. And you can just use this part up to or including the question mark. I don't think that really matters a lot, but this is the part that you can copy and you can use in your, if you go to the data source manager, which is this button here on the left, here we can make a connection to a WFS service. I was copying the WFS service right now, so that is the one I should use here as well. I can make a new connection. I'll call this one anything I like because it is for my own use only. So I'll just call them buildings from the Bach. And I copy the URL in here. Now here you can see some settings. Most of the time, don't touch the settings, they're correct. Sometimes they're not. One of the things you can see here is enable feature paging. That is what I described earlier. So if you have a larger number than the service allows you to, you can use this one. Just make a connection, press OK. Now you can see I've got this server connection. I've got this one now in my list. I've got a few in the list here because I made some more connections, and QGIS remembers the connections. They're stored in your profile. So if I connect, it will just give me, it will ask the server, the service, okay, what kind of layers do you have? And here you can see I've got the different layers from the Bach. So I'm just using the buildings. I can connect to this. I can say, let's add this to my map, and then it will add them from the service. So this is a different way of using the same service. As I said, the PDOK plugin is just an index for all kinds of services that are very easy to, well, I have to drink a bit more, I guess. It's just an index to the services. But you can find these indexes anywhere. So if you go to the National Georegister and you see one of those URLs with a WFS or WMS server, you can just add them to this as a project. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. Let's have a look at this one. Put this one on next. Come on.